From Central Indiana's #1 news source, this is Fox 59 Tonight.
Well, good evening to you. Thanks for joining us here on Fox 59 Tonight. Never mind this thing over here. You're not supposed to be able to see that. Welcome to another edition of Fox 59 Tonight here on our new smart TV app, Fox 59 Now. It is casual day here in Indianapolis because it is hot. No suit. I'm not even going to pretend that it is cool at all. So we're doing polos today. Hey, we want to say thank you. Make sure you hit the subscribe button if you're watching this on YouTube. And also, if you are watching on your smart TV, on your Apple, Roku, or Fire TV, thank you for downloading our new Fox 59 Smart TV app and being here with us as we have these conversations every night at 8 o'clock. So, do you ever think we run out of interesting people to talk to? No, we never run out. There's always somebody to talk to, always somebody who has a perspective on things. And the person I'm introducing you today, you've seen him before. You've seen him in the pulpit. You've seen him on the streets of Indianapolis. And today he's in our studio here at Fox 59 Tonight. The good Reverend Charles Harrison. From Barnes United Methodist Church down there off of 30th Street and Clifton. Would you say Clifton or MLK? What are you closer to?
MLK.
MLK, 30th and then MLK. You can go check their church out, of course. But Reverend Harrison, hi, how are you?
Well, I'm doing fine. It is good to be in the studio and not out in that hot weather.
Yeah, it's the days like today, you really say thank you for the AC.
Yes.
Well, I brought you in because there's you are one of those people who one doesn't mind sharing their thoughts, doesn't mind
Yep.
speaking up. You speak up, and I know a lot of times you get pushback in response
Mhm.
from what you say, but that doesn't stop you from talking again.
Right.
And so, first things first, let's get this out of the way because you made a tweet.
Right.
And I know people were like, so is Charles Harrison running for mayor? There's a lot of talk about who's going to run Indianapolis next, whether there's some
Right.
headlines that aren't great for the current mayor, Joe Hogsett, right now. He's not going to step down no matter the fact that people have asked him. But nevertheless, you have run for mayor before or have thought about it. And so what was the tweet?
Well, the tweet was somewhat reminiscing. I've had a lot of people who have tried to pull me from the pulpit into politics,
Mhm.
and people are always asking me, am I going to run for public office? And I've
Mhm.
kind of resisted that,
Mhm.
for a lot of reasons. One, I really enjoy, what I do as a pastor. I've been pastoring now for about 40 years.
Mhm.
And that's hard to let go of that. And then certainly for the last 26 years, I've been a part of a faith-based organization that's been trying to address the issue of crime and violence. But
Mhm.
it does not stop people from asking me, am I going to one day run for public office? So I did a tweet, a few days ago,
Mhm.
and as people have been asking me, kind of reminiscing on me almost running in 2015.
Mhm.
I was going to run, though I'm a moderate Democrat, I was going to run more as an independent.
Mhm.
I'm not the kind of party person that's going to be, told what to do.
Mhm.
I have a mind on my own,
Mhm.
I thought about running because I felt like with my work that I've done in the city and my life in general, over the years, that I could contribute something to the city. So I did, give a real serious thought, about running. And it wasn't until the last minute that I decided not to do it. And in the tweet, I stated why,
Mhm.
I didn't do it. But I felt like talking about what I felt like we needed,
Mhm.
and in the
Mhm.
tweet, I felt like, we needed more moderate centrist voices. And that's kind of where I am.
Mhm.
And then I kind of ended it, if I do retire in a few years, you never know,
Mhm.
where God may lead you.
Mhm. You didn't close you didn't completely close the door on it.
I didn't completely close the door on running for public office. I didn't really say what
Mm-hmm.
because I've been asked to run for a lot of different things,
Mm-hmm.
here locally and even on the state
Mm-hmm.
level,
Mm-hmm.
to run for public office. But we will see.
So, uh, Charles Harrison, I think may catch some folks off. I don't know if they know where you stand because you said you're a moderate Democrat.
I'm a moderate Democrat.
And the party across the state and across the city um, is interesting. What kind of success do you think that you would have at the uh, one at the state level?
I think growing up in Southern Indiana, I'm from the southern part of the state, down Jeffersonville,
Mm-hmm.
small city, but it's really not small city because it's right across the river from Louisville, Kentucky.
Mm-hmm.
But I think I bring a perspective of both rural and urban. Since I've
Mm-hmm.
lived, here in Indianapolis for the last 32 years, but from Jeffersonville, I think I also bring that urban, perspective,
Mm-hmm.
when it comes to issues that I think are important to people.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly, the issues of crime and violence in urban areas, but the whole issue of in rural communities, jobs.
Mm-hmm.
Because a
Mm-hmm.
lot of rural communities, like when I pastored in Newcastle, Chrysler was there, and it was the major employer of the city.
Mm-hmm.
So Chrysler pulls up and leaves. Then Allegheny leaves, one of the factories. The state hospital leaves Newcastle, and it just devastated the city,
Mm-hmm.
and the church that I pastored there ended up closing,
Mm-hmm.
a few years ago because the younger people who lived there at that time, really had to leave Newcastle in order to find jobs, and
Mm-hmm.
you see that, all over the state of Indiana, where
Mm-hmm.
people have had to leave places that they loved,
Mm-hmm.
but because of the lack of employment, they have had to go elsewhere to try to find employment. So I think I bring that perspective to the table.
So let's say there's a couple years before you decide um, on that, but the specific tweet was uh, made people think, "Are you going to run for mayor?" What do you think of the job that the current mayor Joe Hogsett is doing?
Well, I think in some areas, Mayor Hogsett has done a good job. I know in other areas, people are very concerned, particularly with what's going on right now with the whole sexual harassment
Mm-hmm.
issues within a former employee.
Mm-hmm.
And that's been very controversial. But when it comes to, um, you know, what he's done lately,
Mm-hmm.
to try to improve the crime and violence, building the downtown area. Um, I think he's done a pretty decent job as mayor.
Is the calls right now are for the mayor to step down
Yes,
with
yes.
this investigation into what happened in his office with his chief of staff. You're a moderate Democrat, and the Democrats seem to be all kind of over the place with how they think sh- they should respond. Do you think he should resign?
No, I don't think there's been enough yet that I would say he should resign. I think you see the battle in Indianapolis, somewhat what you see across the country within our party. There's this tug of war,
Mm-hmm.
this struggle between moderates and centrists
Mm-hmm.
and progressives in the
Mm-hmm.
party, and for the direction of the party. So I think you're seeing that play out also, here in Indianapolis,
Mm-hmm.
because certainly the moderates are really pushing against the mayor and have asked the mayor to step down, and particularly many of the younger Democrats who tend to be a little more progressive.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. That investigation, of course, still continues. And again, as of this show, the mayor has not been accused of anything. His office has been found that they followed the policy. Maybe there are suggestions that policy can be tightened up, but at this point, the mayor has not been accused of any wrongdoing. It's Thomas Cook, his former chief of staff, who is the guy who they're investigating at this point. So just to continue to make that clear to everybody. But there have been a number of things in that why folks are saying, okay, it's time. The way that situation's been handled is why people are calling for the mayor to resign.
Well, I think that's fair. I think it's fair to question how it was handled,
Mm-hmm.
but I think the ultimate question is, um, should that cause him to have to resign?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's where the difference is and where the debate is in the community.
Mm-hmm.
Is there enough there where the mayor should be forced to resign?
Mm-hmm.
And at this point, I'm not there yet.
Uh, on if people don't know you from aspirations or thoughts of running for mayor, or if they don't know you from leading a church, they probably know you from being on the street
Yes.
with 10 Point Coalition. Explain what that is. And I think if I was looking at your Twitter earlier or your X page, we're still going to call it Twitter. You were just on the streets. What is 10 Point Coalition?
Well, the Indianapolis 10 Point Coalition is a faith based organization that was started it started in 1998 when there was conversations among Black pastors, primarily on the west side of Indianapolis, to um, have a conversation about what could, if anything, the church could do
Mm-hmm.
to try to address the issue of urban youth violence. Myself at the time, Father Clarence Walton at Holy Angels Catholic Church, Clarence Moore, Pastor Moore at
Mm-hmm.
New Era Church
That's
were
my
kind
pastor.
of the three individuals that started the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Then we invited many other of our colleagues and friends to, begin a conversation about could the church in Indianapolis, the Black church, impact youth violence in the same way that our colleagues were doing in Boston,
Mm-hmm.
in the Dorchester area, who had started a group called Boston 10 Point?
Mm-hmm.
And many of us were so moved and impressed by what clergy were doing as far as going out in the streets and trying to address the issue of violence, dealing with drug dealers and gang members and
Mm-hmm.
prostitutes and the stick-up boys, you
Mm-hmm.
name it, those out there involved in criminal activity. And in 1999, we decided that we were going to replicate what was done in Boston, in Indianapolis, primarily on the west side of Indianapolis with three primary goals.
Mm-hmm.
One, how can we save young people from violence? Number two, how can we improve their literacy skills for those who were dropping out of school and or who may not have had their high school diploma nor GED?
Mm-hmm.
And then number three, how could we provide job opportunities for them so that if you're going to ask the young man on the streets not to sell drugs and
Mm-hmm.
not to carry their gun, you got to
Mm-hmm.
have an alternative for him
Mm-hmm.
because you got to understand that there are things that are driving these young people to be involved in
Mm-hmm.
that kind of behavior.
Mm-hmm.
And for a lot of us, Cameron, um, we were very interested in that because of our own personal lives. A
Mm-hmm.
lot of people don't know that, growing up in Jeffersonville, which is right across the river from Louisville, Kentucky, I was probably 5 minutes. I lived from downtown Louisville.
Mm-hmm.
I had a 21-year-old brother that was killed, and I was 14 and a half years old at the time he was killed.
Mm-hmm.
And, in the streets, you hear what happened, and the individuals that killed my brother ended up showing up at the wake and at the funeral.
Really?
Yes, embracing my parents, crying with them. But on the streets, they were the individuals that was linked to the killing of my brother. Um, so at 14 and a half years old, I'm responding in a way that a lot of young men responded who had grown up in the street. I wanted revenge,
Mm-hmm.
and I was planning revenge along with my friends, but it was a group of men um, who got wind of what we were planning to do,
Mm-hmm.
and it was those men from the church who intervened in my life. So as I began to think about, what 10 Point does and how my life was shaped, because if I would have followed through on what I was planning to do, I was probably was going to end up being killed or I was going to kill someone and ended up in prison
Mhm.
possibly. So it was from that foundation and background that led me to want to do 10 Point.
Mhm.
But what I discovered was a lot of the pastors had similar stories.
Mhm.
You know, several of them had brothers killed, family members killed. And so we began to share our story, and we decided to form 10 Point in 1999 in January. And we started walking the streets on the west side in the United Northwest area,
Mhm.
Riverside, Crown Hill, Highland Vicinity, Mapleton Fall Creek. We also was, in the 23rd and College area where
Mhm.
Grace Apostolic Church was.
Mhm.
And then we were also up in the 38th and Sherman area. And we started patrolling in that area because we had some pastors up in that area. So that's how we got started. It started out with preachers and lay people from our church, and now it has evolved into OGs
Mhm.
and preachers who are walking the streets of Indianapolis. And for us right now, we're in about 12 hotspot areas across the city.
So what's the goal now of 10 Point? Because you're out walking the streets. What areas are you still in now? And what's the goal in those particular areas?
To reduce the level of violence. If we can reduce the level of violence among young men of color between the ages of 12 and 24 and help put them on a pathway of success, that's our goal. So we're at 29th and MLK, which is one of the hot spots in the city. We're still in Butler Tarkington, Crown Hill, which is a hot area, Highland Vicinity. We're on the far east side, 42nd and Midhofer,
Mhm.
Carriage House East Apartments, Mobile
Mhm.
Gas Station,
Mhm.
38th and Midhofer at those gas stations in that area
Mhm.
across the street where the Haitians are.
Mhm.
And then 38th and Post Road and 42nd and Post Road.
Which of those areas is the most challenging?
God, I would say probably 42nd and Post was the most challenging.
Okay.
Um, and 29th and MLK.
Okay.
Those were the two most challenging areas. 42nd and Post Road because of all the apartment complexes.
Mhm.
So you're trying to patrol in those apartment complexes, low income, it tended to be a lot of heavy drug trafficking, and you had
Mhm.
your little cliques in there.
Mhm.
That was very challenging,
Mhm.
going in there. I remember when we first went in there in January of 2018. And the first few months we were there, we had 3 homicides right off the bat.
Mm.
We figured, what have we gotten ourselves into?
Mhm.
And once we got a feel for the area and we started building relationships from June of 2018 to June of 2019, from 38th to 42nd and Post to
Mhm.
38th to 42nd and Midhofer, and all those apartment complexes, we end up going a whole year without anybody being killed. It's remarkable
Mhm.
because you have to build relationships with people on the streets.
Mhm.
And if they don't buy into what you are doing, then you can never keep the peace.
Mhm.
They have to buy into that. And one of the things that we ended up doing, um, we ended up providing meals in the summertime once a week, and we would cook and in one of the apartment complexes, and you would have 300 and 400 kids coming to get something to eat.
Mhm.
And we didn't know at the time that for a lot of kids in the area, they may only have one meal a
Yeah.
day, you
Yeah.
know? And so you start dealing with the whole issue of hunger.
Mhm.
And because we fed kids, many of the drug dealers and some of the gang members thanked us for feeding their families.
Mhm.
So they then made a commitment to us that they were going to help keep the peace.
Mhm. How so you've been how when let me rephrase my question if I could get it out. How often are you still walking the streets?
Normally about 3 nights a week. So I normally do. Sometimes I do Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Sometimes I do Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. But I normally do at least 3 nights a week. But we have teams that are out um, 7 days a week. So we have about 35 individuals. They are in teams, normally 2 to 5, and they patrol certain hotspot areas. That's kind of their area. So what I tend to do is I tend to link up with one of those groups during the week. So on Tuesday night, I'll be with one group, Wednesday night, another group, Thursday, another group, whatever nights I'm out. And it allows me to get to know people in those neighborhoods and get to see the work firsthand, what those teams are doing on the ground.
We're here with Reverend Charles Harrison. We're going to take a commercial break, and we'll be right back with more Fox 59 tonight, right after this.
I like it. I don't get no commercial breaks tonight.